Happy Mother's Day and welcome to Flag Church. When my dad was a little guy, maybe 3 years old or so, he was playing one day in the mud with his truck. And because of the properties of mud, his truck got stuck. And so he calls out to his older brother, my Uncle Jim, "Jim, help! I'm Tuck." And from there on, my dad was called Tuck in his early years. Have you ever been stuck? Have you ever been stuck? Maybe not in mud, but in life. I found myself stuck a couple months ago. 2 years ago, I stepped out of nursing and transitioned into more consistent ministry. And even though I had been ministering alongside of my husband for 26 years, 25 years at that time, there were still some nuances there that I didn't know quite how to navigate. And I couldn't really call upon my husband because he was kind of stuck with me. And so I called a friend of mine. Her name is Sandra, and yes, that is purple hair that she has. And Dr. Sandra pastors with her husband in Overland Park at Faith Chapel and has been working alongside of him for many, many years. And so I called her and said, "Sandra, could I drive up, take you to coffee, and just pick your brain a little bit?" She was gracious, and we probably should have left a little booth rental for as long as we stayed at Starbucks and enjoyed each other's company. But when I left there that day, I walked away with some validation. I had some clarity, but more than anything, I had a full cup. And not coffee, I drained that. But I had a full cup because Sandra was willing to empty her cup into mine. Maybe you've been there, stuck in a relationship or stuck in knowing how to parent this 2-year-old or how to potty train that boy that just doesn't want to stop long enough from playing to go take care of that kind of business. Or maybe you were like me, you're stuck in your career and you're just not sure what that next step needs to look like. What if you invited somebody into your life? Somebody that could empty their cup into yours? Or what if you emptied your cup into another? Today I want to speak on a mothering another, but first to the younger, I encourage you to adopt a mother. Adopt a mother. Somebody who can fill your cup. What would happen, or what could happen, if you could muster up the boldness, the courage to admit that you have some empty spots that need filling? And you went to that person and said, "Can I get some time with you? Because I think you have some wisdom you can impart to me." Now, we're going to be talking about younger, we're going to be talking about the older. Maybe need to clarify who that is. If you think you're the younger, you probably are. And if you think you are the older, you probably are. So to the older woman, I encourage you today to mother another. Mother another. Imagine if your struggles, your victories, your past experiences, that they not only had value when you went through them, but they still had value today. And even if you have never birthed a child, and I realize that today can be a very difficult day, if you desire children and haven't had them, if infertility has touched you like it has touched our family, I understand today's a difficult day. May I encourage you that you can still mother another, that you can still have a motherly influence on someone else. So today we're going to be looking at the relationship between Naomi and Ruth, an older mother pouring into a younger a younger one adopting a mother. But men, I encourage you not to tune me out, that even though we are looking at two women, that there is a parallel in Scripture with Paul and Timothy. So the principles will apply to all, but many of my applications will be made to women today. So I've always been kind of curious about this mentoring. I knew that it had value, but to be honest with you, anytime that it was presented to me, they would almost like picking two names out of hats and putting people together, and it just seemed so forced, and I didn't know if I wanted that person's influence in my life, and I didn't know if I could trust her with my vulnerabilities, and it just always seemed saccharine almost, unnatural. And yet I knew that it still had value. So I want us to look today at how this happened in a much more natural way. And this is what is going to happen as we are just living with people, as we are in their circle and they in ours. We'll begin to identify people that can mentor us or we can mentor. So we're going to pick this up in the book of Ruth. And if you've never read that book before, or it's been a long time and maybe some of those concepts have faded from your memory, I'm going to bring you up to speed here. So Naomi is married to a man named Elimelech, and they're living in Bethlehem. That might ring a bell, right? You know what happened in Bethlehem, right? Well, this is long before Jesus was born. They're living in Bethlehem, and a famine comes to the land. And so Elimelech decides that he is going to pull up stakes. He's going to move his wife and their two sons to the neighboring country of Moab. They're leaving family. They're going into a new culture, a new country. And there they raise their sons. Their sons grow up. They marry two Moabite women. Elimelech dies. But not just Elimelech. Naomi loses both of her sons. Both of her sons die. So there she is, husbandless and childless. She's bitter. She's not just sad. She's bitter, and she's going home. She is returning back to Bethlehem. We're going to pick it up, chapter 1, verse 11. But Naomi said, speaking to her daughter-in-laws, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you want to come with me? Am I going to have more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and gave birth to sons, would you wait until they were grown up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is far better for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me." So Naomi is walking away. She is isolated and she is alone, and that's just the way she wants to stay, isolated and alone. So she is journeying back to Israel, and she is telling the younger generation, "Stay away from me. I don't want to be with you. I want to go home. I want to be by myself. I have nothing to offer you," she says. "I have absolutely nothing to offer you." Have you ever felt that way? Especially maybe the older woman who feels like, I had all this going, but now I don't have anything. I can't identify with this younger generation. I have nothing to offer them. Let's pick it up in verse 14. At this, they went again. Then Orpah, not Oprah, right? It's not Oprah. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Do not urge me to leave you. or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you from me. Then Naomi realized Ruth was determined. In other words, this woman is not giving up. She is not taking no for an answer. So Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, and she stopped urging her. So do you see what happened here? Ruth invited and initiated this mentoring relationship. The younger is saying to the older, you've got things still to offer me. You may feel like you have nothing left, but you do, and I'm going with you. Ruth was asking Naomi to fill her cup. Now, in an ideal situation, one friend would pour into another friend's cup, and the other one would reciprocate, and they're each filling each other's cup. But in a mentor situation, the older one would be the one filling the younger one's cup. However, that has to come by invitation. Why? Because if it doesn't come by invitation, it's called meddling. It's also called dumping your cup. So we're going to pretend that this funnel is our invitation. If the invitation is not issued, then the older woman is simply dumping her cup. And what do you have? Two very frustrated people in a big mess. However, if the younger one can muster up the courage to approach that older one to say, I've got some holes in my life, and I think you can help fill my cup. If she will invite that older lady into her life, then all of a sudden, as that older lady empties her cup, the younger one gets a filled cup. So let's take a look at some cup filling today. Again, has to be initiated by the younger one, or you're just dumping your cup, ladies. You're just dumping your cup. Also known as emotionally vomiting. So some benefits to the younger when we adopt a mother. First of all, we get to learn from example and not from experience. We learn by example and not experience. Ruth had many opportunities to make some mistakes and some missteps. Naomi had been a foreigner in a foreign land. Now she has returned home to her land, and Ruth now is the alien in a foreign land. Naomi would have had some experience on how to navigate living in a different culture, and now she has that experience that she can pass on to Ruth, and Ruth recognizes that. When Connor was in first grade, I got a phone call from his teacher. That's rarely a good thing when you get those phone calls. Thankfully, they were very rare. But there had been an incident on the playground, and I remember her saying, Connor's a good kid, and he usually learns by example. But today, he learned by experience. How much wiser we would be if we could always learn by example, right? Or I have a dear friend that says, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Have you gotten some things by experience? Yeah, me too. But we can gain some wisdom if we have somebody who we can follow their example instead of our own experience. How far could you go if your GPS is only loaded with the maps of your own travels? Be pretty limited, wouldn't you? And you wouldn't have a need for a GPS either. Be pretty limited if your only maps are of your own travels. But if someone would pour into you, you can go farther faster. You can go farther faster. Ruth had Naomi in her corner, but she didn't have her just in her corner. She had her in the lead, kind of like a pacer for a marathon. I know when my husband runs marathons, can't understand this, but he does. He pays money to run even. Who does that? But anyway, there's usually a person with this sign a little bit ahead of him, and it has a number on it. If he wants to complete that marathon in that length of time, he needs to follow behind that pacer. And this is what Ruth got to do because Naomi had already been down that path. She had a pacer in her life, someone who could help her navigate the detours or even avoid them altogether. What detours could be avoided in your life if you had an older woman pouring into you? Or what wrong turns could be averted because she has the perspective of seeing that wrong turn. It's like, don't go that way, go this way. Or she could help you find those shortcuts. She could say, no, don't go down Broadway, go around the bypass. You'll get to the mall a whole lot quicker. What is stopping you, ladies, you younger ladies, from downloading somebody else's maps into your GPS? It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be pride or lack of courage. But I could hear some of you saying, I don't know, is it really even helpful? Well, you tell me. What would it be worth to you if you had some answers to some questions like, man, how do I get all of this done? There's so much more on my to-do list than I've got hours in my day. Or how do I manage my resources? And don't just think finances there, ladies. Or what should I be prioritizing right now? There's so much to do, but what needs to take priority? Or maybe you're stuck and you're saying, how do I move forward? How do I move forward? Would those answers be of some value? I know it was to me when I could walk away with a full cup, knowing what my next step needed to look like. And to the older one, I encourage you to mother another. And when we mother another, one of those benefits is that our wisdom isn't wasted. Our wisdom is not wasted. So Naomi is back in her culture with her daughter-in-law Ruth, who knows nothing of this culture. And had she chosen to keep her wisdom to herself, not only would it have affected Ruth, it would have ended up affecting Naomi as well. Let me tell you why. God had made provisions. He had told the Israel people, his people, when you plant a field, don't harvest all of it. Don't harvest 100% of it. You need to leave a margin. And that margin is for the aliens and the widows to be able to come and gather some food so that they too can survive. Had Ruth not told Naomi, had Naomi not told Ruth this, there's no way she would have known it. Had she taken that knowledge to the grave, it would have been an early grave for both of them. So your wisdom is not wasted. You know, unless God changes Mark's name to Abraham, this Sarah is probably not going to bear another child. At 50, I am too old to enlist in any of the branches of the armed forces, and I am twice the age limit to compete in Miss America. Is that age discrimination or what? But so often we think when we hit a certain age, we are past our prime. I encourage you, older woman, Your wisdom is in its prime. It is in its prime. So not only is your wisdom not wasted, you can have restored purpose and energy. So Ruth has been gleaning in this field of Boaz's, and she is coming home at night, not with an apron full of barley. No, she's coming home with bushels, far more than she would have been able to pick in one day by herself. And so Naomi's going, Ruth, where'd you get all of this? And she's like, well, Boaz gave it to me. And so Naomi is able to coach Ruth and tell her, he's flirting with you, girl. This is his way of showing you favor. So they go on, a romance develops. Naomi coaches Ruth through those courtships, and by the end of the book, Ruth and Boaz have married, and they have had a baby. I want to direct your attention to the 4th chapter, which is the last of this sweet little love story. Picking it up in verse 14. Then the women of the town said to Naomi, look who is being celebrated here. It's not the newlyweds. It's not even the mom, Ruth, who gave birth to a son. But it's to Naomi that the women of the town are saying, praise the Lord who has now provided a redeemer for your family. May this child be famous in Israel. May he restore your youth. Restore your youth and care for you in your old age. He has been a son for he is the son of your daughter-in-law who loves you and has been better to you than 7 sons. Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. Remember, she's childless at this point. But the women are saying, you have a son. The neighbor women said, now at last, Naomi has a son again, and they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. As our nest empties, and I'm getting very close to that, as our nest empties, our cups are still full, ladies. Our cups are still full. There is so much that God wants to birth and rebirth in you and through you. And it can be done alongside and through another as we both can accomplish His will for our lives. The other benefit that an older woman has is the ability to see seasons, because she survived several of them by this point. She's lived through the beginnings and the ends of many things. And here at Flag, we're about to embark on a new season. I've had the privilege of leading women's ministries since Mark and I came in 2000, so almost 18 years now. And for about 14 of those years, we've had a weekly Bible study on Wednesday nights that we call WOW. And about January or so, I felt God tugging at my heart, saying, you know what? I think the season is over. I'm like, but then He began to stir this and birth this within my heart. And so this Wednesday will be our very last Bible study on Wednesday night with the ladies. The following Wednesday, we are going to celebrate it. And that's another thing. Once we get a few years on us, we begin to realize we can celebrate endings. They don't have to just be mourned. And so we are going to celebrate the end of WOW. And then we are going to transition into a new form of women's ministries. And we're calling it Real Women, because that's what we're going to have to be. If we're going to be in relationship with one another, if we're going to encourage one another, if we're going to be authentic with one another, and then just as Naomi enjoyed a baby in her old age, laughter. So how is this going to look? Well, first of all, there will be no women's Bible study, no women gathering on Wednesday nights through the summer. Now, all the other ministries will still be going on. The youth will still have their Wednesday night services. The kids will still be being ministered to, but the women are hitting the pause button. And then in the fall, we'll relaunch that as women's life groups. Currently, we have 4 women's life groups. My goal this fall is that we would have 9 women's life groups, because it's in circles that we can have true relationships and we can be real with one another, that we can invite somebody to fill our cup and we get the opportunity to fill another one's cup. When I was a young child growing up in the church, often at the altar we would sing a song. It went something like this. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread of heaven, fill me till I want no more. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole. Now, there are many ways that God can fill our cup, but can I tell you his favorite way? His favorite way is to fill you in fellowship with another person. So, young lady, I'm asking you to be real. I'm asking you to be honest and say, you know what? There are some areas that my cup is empty. Be brave enough. Be courageous enough. Be humble enough to admit it and ask an older lady to fill your cup. Adopt that mother, so to speak. And older woman, just as Paul said, that which I receive, I pass on to you. Are you willing to fill another one's cup? Are you willing to mother another? Would you stand with me this morning?